Welcome back to the Larry Hembree pregame show. We're on our Where Are They Now segment, and tonight I'm talking with 1966 St. John Eagle graduate Steve Downey. Steve, how are you this evening?
Just fine, Larry, and you?
Just fine. Now, you graduated in 1966. Who are some of the ball players that were on that team with you, Steve?
Well, back in 1966, I was a senior. There was Dave Erler, Tony Bullock, Greg Brown, Bobby Allen, Ronnie Lannon, Davey Birch, Pat Bowling, and those were some of the juniors that played with us at that time.
And who were the seniors?
Seniors were Dave Erler, Greg Brown, Ronnie Lannon, Tony Bullock. Right off the top of my head, I believe that's all I can think of right now.
Well, because I know some of those guys, and they all said that there wasn't enough basketballs on the team when you were on the team, Steve. What the heck's that all about?
Well, they used to say that it was kind of like a black hole. Whenever they threw the ball to me, it was definitely going to go up, but I think they exaggerated that somewhat, but we did have a lot of fun with that, through the years.
Right. Did you play on the 64 Wabash Valley Championship team?
Yes, we did. I was a sophomore at that time, and we had a real good guard at that time that played was Tom Cooper. He saw the floor very well as he...
In other words, he passed you the ball a lot?
Yeah, quite a bit. Yes, he did. And let's see, I think Mark Allen was there, Tony DeVault, both real good ball players. Pat McGovern played in our center post quite a bit. George Craze was another quick guard. We had a really good mixture of players at that time, some pretty good height, good ball handlers, and good shooters.
Do you recall who you beat in the final game?
I believe in the final game that in '64 it was either Unionville or Attica. It might have been Attica, but I can't remember exactly for sure. But I know they was in the final games, and I can't remember exactly which one it was that we played at that time.
Well, Steve, Rex Strawn tells a story on you that there was some little red-headed guard that was only 5'7" that used to shut you down all the time. Of course, Rex says that you couldn't go right, and that guy kept you from going left. And,
yeah.
And you had 3 charging fouls on you before the game ever hardly got started. Is that a true story?
Rex always likes to say things like that because he usually, when I played, he was usually sitting and watching from the bench, and he really couldn't see a heck of a lot of anything. But, Kenny Fry was, our senior year when we played Loogootee down at the...
Oh, that's who he's talking about, Kenny Fry. I see.
Kenny Fry.
Uh-huh.
And he was a good defensive man.
Was he?
Yeah.
Is that the only time you ever had a chance to play Lions while you were in high school?
No, we played them, I believe we played them our junior year, and that was the year we had them down. Tom Nate was at guard, and Tony DeVault, Mark Allen, myself, McGovern. We had them down about like 5 or 6 points with only a few, maybe 50 seconds to go. And I remember Mike Bollinger, who was a senior that year for Loogootee, was a quick guard, and he somehow got a hold of the ball and went down and scored a layup. And after that, it kind of fell apart, and we got beat. I believe it was 3 or 4 points right at the end.
Mike was a good basketball player.
Yes, he was.
Absolutely. Now, this summer, we got to have some fun, Steve. You and I coached high school, 16, 17-year-old AAU.
Yes.
Of course, I think I did most of the coaching, right?
Yeah, you did. No question about that. I've been a lot of years since I've been in it.
It was interesting, but you did get on the floor and practice with us one time.
Yep.
And the one time you got the ball, like you said, black hole, but you did bury a 3, just bingo, and then you walked off the court.
Well, I can remember Junior G telling me one time during the nostalgia sectional that we had here about 6 or 7 years ago. We were out there shooting around, and he said, well, it's kind of like riding a bicycle. You never forget it. It just takes a little time to come back to you. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Now, of course, Loogootee this year is in and last year is in class basketball, Steve. What do you think about class basketball?
Well, I think it could work out good if they brought it down to 2 classes. The multiple class system, I think, is a farce. I don't know why or how they got that ramrodded through. I don't think they paid much attention to the people of the state of Indiana in what they really wanted, but I think this multiple class is pretty much of a sham. They're going to lose money. I think it has taken away from the caliber of how we view Hoosier hysteria, and I don't think it'll ever go back. I don't think they'll ever, say, well, we made a mistake and we're going to go back to the old way. But I believe that there's a good possibility that it will maybe get shaved down to a 2-class system, where I think that would help stabilize and bring back at least a good part of what we call Hoosier hysteria.
Well, you know, again, I think that's probably a good compromise because, unfortunately, I have to agree with you that I think class basketball is here to stay. But maybe a two-class system like they've done in Illinois will work a lot better than the four-class system we have now. It's just too watered down. And
right.
And you're right. You know, the excitement of a small school knocking off a big school and the amount of people you can bring to a gym, it's really, really diluted the crowds. And you lose some of that, some of that closed-in gym feeling like it was when you played back in the 60s.
Sure. I mean, that's, if the crowd, it's like when we went up to the semi-state in Terre Haute. Walking into there, it was like walking into a mausoleum. There was 10 times more empty seats than there were people, and, that it's hard to get excited when you can't, feel the other emotions of the people sitting around you and so forth. And even though it is a tournament game, there was just a lot missing, and to get that back, I can see only one way of doing it, and that's to bring back some of the, I guess you would say, the big schools, like you say, getting beat by the small schools. And what the heck, when we played, we went out there. We didn't care who we played. We just wanted a chance to play whoever we thought was real good. It didn't matter if they had 2,000 students or 500 students. If we won, we won, and if we didn't, we went on to the next game. And but to be able to compete and play the best, that's what we wanted to do.
Exactly. Now, speaking of, again, back to when you played, who was your coach in '66, Steve?
In '66, it was Mr. Fred O'Brien.
Fred.
He came in my senior year, and, when I went through St. John's in the 4 years I went through there, we had two different coaches that I played under. One, of course, was Burke Scott, the famous IU grad that played on the championship
How did
team.
you guys ever land Burke Scott and Loogootee? That's kind of a story that's always interested me.
Well, he was at Plainville. I think he coached at Plainville. I believe that was his first school when he graduated, and he was up there for 3 or 4 years. And somehow or another, coming down, he had talked with Father Dahl and the assistant pastor at that time, and we had a much nicer gymnasium here and so forth in the high school. We had that new high school, and he liked the surroundings. I know he didn't make much money, but he thought it was a step up, being able to go to a little bigger town with a nicer facility.
Did you ever keep up with him? What happened to him?
I've seen Coach Scott, of course, the nostalgic section, he come in and was our coach during that time, and I've seen once in a while on the golf course down at Christmas Lake. I believe that's about all he does now is plays golf down at Christmas Lake. He lives down there, around the course.
Well, where did he go to high school at, Steve? Do you know?
He was out of Tell City.
Tell City.
Yes.
The marksman down at Tell City.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Now, Steve, you probably played baseball as well in high school, didn't you?
Yes, I did, all 4 years.
And what positions did you play, basically?
Pitcher, mainly. Once in a while I'd play first base when we had another pitcher pitching, but 90% of the time I was a pitcher.
Well, again, Rex has always said you could never throw it in the ocean. How could you find home plate? That's the big question we need to know tonight.
If you look at Rex's hand, you'll notice that he's got a bunch of calluses there. Well, that was catching all them fastballs. I used to knock him up against the fence, the backstop, because, he had a hard time handling it.
Oh, man, I tell you. Anyway, Steve, kind of what happened to you when you graduated? Just give us a summary of what Steve Downey's been up to.
Okay, well, of course, I went to Indiana State for 3 years and was going to teach, and I decided I didn't want to do that, so I dropped out a year and took a sales job up in Indianapolis, and I worked there for a year. And I got acquainted with the Gale family in Loogootee, and because I had some developing back problems, and I got interested in chiropractic, and through Dr. Gale, who's of course retired now and doesn't live around here anymore, he helped me get into school, and that's where I went to school in Logan at St. Louis and graduated there in 1976, and have been practicing chiropractic ever since.
And of course, you've had one son that's played for the Lions, and you have another, Steve Downey, a few years ago. Now you have Kevin.
Right.
I've watched you a couple times up there when your son he does something well or maybe makes a mistake. You don't seem to show a lot of emotion. I'm just curious how you how you stay so calm with your kids playing basketball, especially being a former ball player and you know absolutely what's going on.
Well, basically, you kind of just bite your tongue. What I do is I'll change my hand stances a lot, and of course the fists are gripping, because you want all the boys to do good. Of course, when you got a kid out there, you hope that the mistakes are minimal. But I think you just realize that it's part of the game, and they are going to happen, and you just kind of shake it off, and don't get too shook up about it.
Well, it looks to me things might be a lot harder on the parents than it would be the kids when they're playing.
A lot of times it is, no question about it.
Well, being a former ball player as well, of course, your boys are in practice every night. They have, I'm sure they have good practices and tougher practices. Is there much talk that goes on in the Downey household about basketball and any?
No.
How do you handle that?
That's one thing, unless like with Kevin and Stephen both, unless they bring it up, there's not too much said. Usually they don't say anything about practice unless somebody gets hurt or something like that. But whenever I ask them how the practice to go today, it's always been fine. That's about all you get out of them. And so I think they're pretty close-lipped about it, with playing under Jack Butcher and so forth, and learning the fine arts of how to be a good basketball player. I don't dig into it, and they don't offer much.
Well, that's probably the best policy. I came home from practice one time and sat down at the table and was really belly aching about the treatment I thought I was personally getting. And, of course, my grandfather said I had two choices, and one of them was he wasn't going to listen to it. So,
yeah.
So I think that's pretty good. I mean, you go up there, and it's a 4-year effort, and you have to, if you're committed to it, that's what you're committed to. And
that's right.
And you just all the other stuff probably breeds bad attitudes, I'd say.
That's right. If they're having a problem and they want to bring it up, that's fine and dandy. But I think like with my boys and probably most kids, when they're out there practicing and playing and so forth, if they can't work it out amongst themselves as a team and coaching staff and so forth, then it shouldn't be brought out. That's between them and the coach and the team.
Well, listen, buddy, you get that arm iced up because I'm still going to take you up on that offer for a three-point shooting contest, and you really need to get ready for that.
Okay. Well, I'm having Rex give me a program of exercises to do, and hopefully we'll be back and ready to go.
Well, if he's giving you a program of exercise, you're in big trouble. That's all
You got that right. Yes.
Well, listen, Steve, thanks for talking to us tonight, and good luck with the rest of the season. I know we're going to be able to see Kevin play for a couple more years, and
good.
Maybe we can still help these kids in AAU.
Yes, sir. We'll do, Larry.
All right, Steve. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.